Hello, I'm Tim Harris. This is Julie Harris, and this is Real Estate Coaching Radio.
That's right. So make sure that you hit the subscribe button so you won't miss any future episodes. Thanks again for popping by. Hit that like button, and don't forget to leave your comments and questions so we can get right back with you.
We will. Thank you for continuing to make our podcast, Real Estate Coaching Radio, the #1 listened to podcast for real estate professionals in at least the United States. And let us know what you think about this video. Leave your comments below. Thank you.
3, 2, 1, and we are back, and we're talking today, this is part 2, we're talking about how to be obsessed with your success in real estate, which you would think from the surface that everyone is obsessed with their success. But as we go through the final points of this 2-part series, you'll realize that not very many people truly are. So Julie, what is point number 6?
All right, again, part 2, point number 6, agents and brokers who are obsessed with success in real estate, they actually own their success. Quote, if it's meant to be, it's up to me. That's their motto, their affirmation, their theme song. Mediocre or struggling agents expect their broker, their team leader, maybe even Zillow, to deliver to them all of the opportunities.
And the flip side to that one, of course, is making sure that you are always taking responsibility for any failures that come your way. Even if you perceive those failures to be not your fault. The second you start wearing or having a victim mentality in your head, you will lose. Point number 7.
Point number 7, the most successful agents who are obsessed with success, they embrace discipline. Now that's different than how some of you look at discipline. They actually know what makes the money in real estate. The most successful agents can tell you who their next clients are and how they generated those leads in the first place. They are not subject to the whims of what we call the real estate gods or to luck or to hopium. Instead, they run a successful, duplicatable, proactive real estate practice.
Well, so drill down a little bit on that, Julie. Their business is basically built on the idea that they're going to have to proactively lead generate.
Yes.
That they're going to have lead generation spokes. Each spoke is going to not be dependent on the other. I was having a conversation with a big agent, Dan Beer, actually, in San Diego last night. And he was telling me about what his spokes were. And I pointed out to him that if one spoke, for example, he had a lot of income sources that were all coming from a real estate transaction. I suggested to him that he doesn't have individual spokes. There was a spoke for mortgage, title. You guys get the usual, breakdown. But here's the challenge. If there was no real estate transaction happening, those other spokes weren't producing income. So the reality of it is those 4 or 5 different sources of income were actually all one because they were all dependent on a real estate deal. So when you're thinking about making, and for the sake of creating consistent lead flow, make sure that the sources of leads are not interdependent on each other. The best lead flow, the most consistent agents, the agents that frankly have the most net income, are the ones that know how to proactively lead generate, which is frankly very few agents nowadays know how to proactively lead generate. What do I mean? They're not writing checks or giving credit card numbers for their buyer or seller leads. They know every single day that they can wake up in the morning, they know what to say and what to do, and they'll generate their own lead. They're not waiting for the real estate gods to drip some lead into their email or what have you, which is unfortunately what has become normalized, and many of you think that's actually how you create leads, is you just buy them. The real way you create leads, the real way you create long-term sustainable real estate business that has a lot of profit, a profit margin of at least 50%, ideally 75%, which means you earn $1, you keep 75 cents, is by being a proactive lead generator. That has always been the primary focus of our coaching business. All of you in Premier Coaching, you know exactly what I'm talking about. We drill down on that every single day. There's at least 20 different sources of proactive lead generation that we really want you to focus on. And again, in this marketplace, guess what? They work incredibly well. And the competition for those proactive lead generation sources is frankly not showing up because for the last 15 years, many agents have never, frankly, had to learn how to proactively lead generate like they do now. And they've been able to buy leads. Now, what's happening to those buyer lead sources? What happened to all those big teams that were buying all those leads from Zillow? What's happened to all of you who've never actually learned how to do the real work of real estate? It's your time to step up. Text the word Premier to 47372. Text the word Premier to 47372, or just go to premiercoaching.com and you can join our Premier Coaching program 100% for free. So do that urgently. Text the word Premier to 47372, or just go to premiercoaching.com.
Point number 8, agents and brokers who are obsessed with their success in real estate deal with market shifts head on. They realize, and this is an interesting way to look at it, okay, so pay attention to how this goes. They realize that good times can create bad real estate people or bad salespeople, and tough times actually create superstars.
Well, why is that?
It's counterintuitive, isn't it?
It is. Well, so let's just, use your own new batch of coaching clients as an example. I mean, you could tell some stories you've been telling me about. There's a common thread amongst all of them that a lot of them basically don't know why they were successful or what it took for them to be successful. And now that they realize that they actually have to start being a little bit more deliberate, well, a lot more deliberate and focused, they now have to go back to step one and really learn how to build a business.
Yes, that's right. They have had, and I would say, with the exception of maybe my two fresher, newer agents, the rest of them have had enough success that they definitely have a taste for it. They really like it. They like what it's done for them. And then the market started to shift, right? Interest rates went up, inventory went down, deals are harder to come by, a lot of the frothiness has disappeared. And you know what? There was definitely a sense of pause, P-A-U-S-E, pause, where they were waiting to see, okay, how long is this going to last? Is this going to be like 90 days and the spring market's going to roar back and I'm going to be fine and it's all going to be like that again? And yet it's been longer than that. And now they've come to the realization, you know what? If it's meant to be, it really is up to me. And I better get my proactive lead generation polished up and figured out if I don't want this to be a weird year.
One of the best signs that you can be successful in the future is if you've been successful in the past.
Yes.
So if you've been successful in the past market, you will be successful in the new market. You just have to learn what this new market demands. And a lot of you guys who, well, there's been, 15 of you, 15 basically, who have decided to become private coaching clients of yours.
Yes.
I know I'm talking with 3 or 4 others today. And not all of you guys are a good fit for Julie. And I will have that frank conversation. If you want to talk about, frankly, whether you qualify to be coached by Julie, please text me directly at 512-758-0206. 512-758-0206. Do me a favor, when you're texting, please do text a brief description of yourself and your business so we can get the conversation started. And we'll see. And then what happens after we have the conversation, just so you know, assuming you want to move forward, then I schedule you with Julie. And then she basically will, she's going to decide whether she wants to coach you and you're going to decide whether or not you want to be coached by her. It's a process, but the end result is you're going to have somebody who's market tested. And as you guys may or may not know, National Association of Realtors calls us America's #1 real estate coaches. So with that in mind, if you'd like to be coached by, Julie Harris, who's our head coach, do text me, 512-758-0206. But only do it if you're serious. Only do it if you're actually really ready to drill down. Because I'll tell you what Julie's going to really discover if you get to the point where she's pre-qualifying you. She's going to find out whether or not you're actually, here's the question she's going to ask you. So I'll tell all you guys. You're going to, tell her how serious you are and how much, want to be successful and all that. She'll ask you some iteration of this. On a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being absolutely anything it takes and 1 being, maybe, where will you rate your motivation to accomplish whatever your goals are you set out for yourself? And if you don't answer at least a 9, she's probably not the coach for you because you're not ready to be coached. Now, here's what you'll hear. If you say like a 7 or an 8, she's going to say, okay, so what will it take to get you to a 10? What will you be willing to get to a 10? What are you not willing to do to get to a 10? And then you're going to self-discover, truthfully, what your real motivation is and really how focused you are. And unfortunately, what will happen for a lot of you is you're going to discover that you are not as focused as you think you are. You're then going to have to decide whether or not you're really, truly willing to do what you don't want to do and you don't want to do it at the highest level. And then it's time for you to have that conversation with Julie.
That's right. And some common answers to that question, what is it going to take for you to have that 10 level motivation for people who are maybe 7, 8, or 9? Typically, it is, I cannot believe that I have been able to list a handful of properties. I've been very good with buyers, but I can't believe that I've been able to do these listings without even a pre-listing package or a listing presentation. And I know when I have to compete for real, I'm probably going to lose, which means I'm not being that proactive trying to get those appointments.
Well, I've heard you on the phone with them too, and I've talked to some of them again prior to you speaking with them. Mm-hmm. And most of them are getting their business from centers of influence and past clients.
I would agree with that.
And I've had yesterday, I think I had 2 people that were that I scheduled with you, by the way, that were losing listings to their of their centers of influence and past clients to agents that obviously were taking a more professional approach.
Yes, and they've been surprised by that.
Exactly, and that's what's going to happen to most agents. That's when Julie and I talk about this on the show all the time. The agents that are usually the most adversely affected from a downward market like what we're in now are the centers of influence and past client agents. are the agents that only know how to work their centers of influence and past clients. Why? Because they think they have skill, but what really they were benefiting from was a buoyant market. They were benefiting from a seller's market. They were benefiting from the fact that there was FOMO, fear of missing out, that was everywhere. Sellers wanted to sell so they could cash out and then they could buy the next house. Buyers wanted to buy, because after all, buying a house was the winning lottery ticket. Who cares what the payment is? The interest rate was nothing. The market was creating so much momentum, it fooled a lot of us into believing that we're a hell of a lot better than we actually are. Well, that's okay. It's now time to go back and learn what you should have learned in the first place. But don't wait too long, because unfortunately what's going to happen is, as you're waiting around for things to go back to the way they were, which that will never happen. That market is gone forever. It is not going to happen. There will not be low interest rates again. We're in this cycle for at least 5, maybe 10 years. That is the reality of it. Just accept it. Don't try to, overthink it. So if that's the truth, and if you know that's the truth, because guess what? It's the truth. What do you need to be doing now to absolutely positively make the most of this new market? Some of you are just throwing your hands up in the air and you don't know what to do. A lot of you are starting to throw like darts at the dartboard. Oh, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. I'm going to buy more leads. All of that stuff only works in one kind of market. We've been telling you guys this on this podcast for years, that these things only work in one kind of market.
And also waiting for the market to come back to what it was is not a strategy.
The branding and the marketing will not exist in a true transitioning, let alone buyer's market, because it is an indulgence that does not lead to a paycheck. You will discover what I'm saying is true, but I'll tell you how I know, because we've been doing this for a really long time, and we have seen these repetitive patterns. And what happens is, when the market is a seller's market and everyone's making money, there's a whole array of companies that start selling stuff to agents, and the biggest ones are usually marketing and branding. Back in the 90s and then in the early 2000s and the real estate crash, these companies, they come and they go. And they're always trying to basically, because agents are saying, during the boom times, they're saying, I'm making all this money. Must be because of me. I think I'm doing great. I need to build my brand. I need to spend more money on, making it so that when people think of me, they think I'm the mayor of the community, stuff like that. But at the end of the day, when the money stops flowing as easily, when buyers and sellers start becoming a hell of a lot more selective in who they're going to work with, and all of a sudden those marketing and branding bills come due, then you stop paying them. And then you know what you realize? It wasn't producing anything in the first place. Now, I know that might offend some of you, because you've invested for a long period of time in your marketing and branding, and you think you were actually building something. What you were doing was advertising, and I'll prove it to you. You stopped doing it, and whatever you were getting from it will be essentially evaporate within 60 days or less. You did not build a brand. You were just merely running ads. So, that's an unfortunate truth, and a lot of you guys are going to learn the hard way. But for the love of God, please don't take too long to learn this lesson, because you might wait so long you're no longer in the real estate business.
Yeah, don't become a statistic, right? So point number 9, agents who are obsessed with success in real estate market, they make informed, fact-based choices, such as which broker to hang their license with, and they can tell you the specific reasons. They actually have thought that out. They have done their research. They're just not going whichever the way the wind sways them.
Well, that's an awesome. I have a conversation that's happening. What time is it? It's happening in a half hour with Dan Lesniak and Carrie Shaw, who are part of our EXP group, and we're going to be meeting with a very large team from I don't care, Compass. I'll say the name.
Okay.
And Dan did a really great spreadsheet ahead of time. I didn't tell you about this. He really did a really great spreadsheet. And this team, it's not a big team, I think it's 5 or 6 people. The difference that they're going to save with being at EXP versus Compass is at least $120,000 a year.
That's amazing.
But here's the interesting thing. If he had approached, or I or anyone else had approached that team, say 18 months or 24 months ago, they would have not even been interested in moving. They wouldn't have cared. The 120 would have meant nothing to them. I've had similar conversations with teams and brokers who 2 years ago or 3 years ago, they weren't paying attention to how much money or they were spending or overspending, because the money was flowing so quickly. if you want to know, it's large margins, guys. That at the end of the day, when money's flowing really fast, people overspend and they don't hold their expenses accountable to results. That is a classic business mistake that all of us make. Julie and I were making that in our coaching and training business. We went through every one of our expenses and we found, well, we have too many seat licenses for that app and we're doing this, we're doing that. We didn't find a lot, but we found enough that we were embarrassed that we allowed those things to get by us. But when you look at some of the things that agents have been spending their money on, brokerages are generally speaking the biggest. Like, you guys do not really know how much money you're spending at your broker just for the sheer, I think, being a bit responsible business owner. You should really add it all up. Tim, what are you talking about? I'm on a 95.5. Well, you didn't, what about the 6 or 8% royalty fee? What about this fee? What about that fee? What about the $300 per transaction fee? Add all of that up. Because in a market like this, the reason eXp Realty is growing and all the other brokerages, for as far as I know, are stagnating or losing agents, because agents are wising up to the fact that maybe they're not going to sell as many houses as they have because there's, frankly, a lack of inventory. Interest rates are higher. There's less demand. So how can they make the same amount of money? How can they actually not have to start selling assets and diminish their lifestyles? Well, the biggest single thing they can go after is what they're paying their broker. I mean,
that's just the tip of the iceberg too.
Right. And so with eXp's growth, I know in the last year, it's been mostly with, guess what? Teams and small brokerages. Obviously, a lot of new agents are joining as well. Guys, it's just math. This is all it is. It's math.
Well, but look, circle back to that point. Agents who are obsessed with their success, especially their ongoing success in a changing market, they make what you were just talking about with your Dan and Carrie meeting coming up, informed, fact-based choices, like based on numbers, right? So like choosing your brokerage, right? So I wonder whether those people that you're going to talk to would say that they got $120,000 worth of value.
I mean, look, that wasn't the biggest one I've seen. The biggest one, there's one that we had. It was another person in our eXp group, and he was recruiting a broker. Actually, it was a team from Century 21, and this person was losing over $400,000 to Century 21 every year. And eXp with his team, the total amount that he was going to end up paying was $53,000.
Yeah.
So it was like $423,000 versus $53,000.
Informed decision.
Those are real numbers.
Yeah.
Well, but that's, think about that. So let's say he sells the same amount that he did the previous year this year. Well, he just increased his, net to him by $375,000.
Yes.
Well, let's say maybe his market's not going to be able to, maybe there's just not that much volume to do, and maybe he ends up selling fewer homes, but he doesn't have to sell his assets. He doesn't have to diminish his lifestyle because, frankly, he's going to save such an enormous amount of money he would have been losing to that particular brokerage. Guys, it's this market that you need to take a hard look at where you've been spending your money. You need to be, if the thing you're spending your money on from a marketing and branding or, lead generation perspective is not generating a transaction that puts money in your pocket, and frankly, 90 days or less, stop doing it.
Yeah, because you're just speculating.
Right. Well, for example, Julie, I had a conversation today with a gal who wanted to be in your coaching schedule. And I went back and forth, and I didn't really think she was a fit for you. And I suggested one of our other coaches. But the reality of it is that she was spending money on a bunch of different things. She was spending on it, and I asked her, well, you're rattling off some things that you're spending money on. How do you know those things are working or not? She didn't have an answer.
Yeah.
So guys, do take the time, go through your credit card statement, go through and look to see whatever you're paying that's usually recurring that you don't even remember what the hell it does. Stop paying for it. See if your life changes, and it won't. You just, essentially, this is a business cycle, but this is a really great opportunity for real estate businesses, agents, brokers, teams, everybody to really go through and do a reassessment of really where they've been spending their money, and then start being pissed off that your net margins are not higher. And that's where this industry during the last boom cycle has gone to the point where teams and brokers have been willing to accept an average brokerage, guys, ready for this, makes less than 2% net profit. The average teams when Julie and I were in real estate, we had a team. Our team was generally making about 40 to 50% profit. This was before the advent of buying leads and all the rest of it. Now what happened during the last few years, most of the teams that I talked with, most of which wanted to be, put financially straight by us and or join eXp with us, most of their net profits were less than 10%. And recently, of the teams I've talked to, most of them are making net profits, if they're making profit at all, which so far this year, most of them are barely breaking even. Their net profits are around 4%. That is not acceptable. You should not be operating like that.
That's 1 quarter away from demise.
Well, 100%. And that's unfortunately, again, we've seen this cycle before. And so you guys need to really take a hard look. I know we're the only ones in the real estate industry that are having direct conversations with you like this. I know we're the only ones that are, and I have a whole, gambit of reasons why I think that's true. Why nobody else is willing to have these conversations with you. But here's the bottom line. You've got to be putting your own mask on first in this marketplace. You've got to expect that the market's going to get more challenging before not, because it's going to. And you've got to start really thinking about the fact that your product in your real estate business is profit. And if you're not making large profit margins, you don't really have a for-profit business. You're running a non-profit business. I mean, that's kind of a word salad, but here's the bottom line. You have got to take responsibility, to Julie's first point today, for your outcome. You've got to take ultimate responsibility. Stop blaming the market. Stop blaming interest rates. Stop blaming competition. Stop blaming this, that, the other thing, and get ahead of this, because you can make more money now if you pivot quickly, because frankly, your competition is asleep at the wheel waiting for the clouds to clear.
Very true. Point number 10. The most successful real estate agents don't recreate or reinvent best practices. Instead, they learn from the best and find success faster as a result. Napoleon Hill said that whatever the mind can conceive and believe, it can achieve. So ask yourself, what are you conceiving and believing, and who is helping you to achieve that? Don't go through the real estate shift alone. Are you thinking big enough? Do you have what Napoleon Hill called definiteness of purpose? That's knowing what direction you're going, having goals, knowing how to get there. Are you actually obsessed with your real estate success, or are you subject to however it's going to go? And I'll tell you, Tim, I can tell the difference between somebody who is obsessed with their success versus not. The ones who are obsessed can tell you, I want to do A, B, and C, and they may not know exactly how to get there, and that's what coaching is about, but they at least can say, they don't say things like, well, I just know I need to do better, or I should probably save more money, or I want to do more. Those are all very nebulous, and there's no accountability to that.
Well, the ultimate accountability is in numbers, frankly.
Yes.
Because you can't hide from the numbers.
No.
And if you're not making a large net profit, so this is an interesting concept, but I want you all to wrap your mind around it, because it's liberating if you accept this. Your real estate business is not worth a damn thing. By the way, our coaching business probably isn't either. 99.9% of all small businesses, all they really are, if run correctly, are ATM machines for the owners and maybe a few key employees. It's with the profit from that business, then you reinvest, and that's how you get rich.
Which means there has to be profit.
Correct. And yet, everyone's been led to believe for a whole host of reasons that you're supposed to sacrifice profit, you're supposed to reinvest in your business so you can, create, and then one day down the road, you'll start making profit, or somebody's going to come around and want to buy your business. Stop thinking like that. It doesn't even have to be in real estate. That so very rarely happens in any business. Most businesses never get sold. Most businesses never have some big liquidity event. The smartest businesses have always been the small and medium-sized businesses that have large profit margins. That's how you, frankly, get rich over time. Rich is where your money works for you. You no longer have to work for your money. That is a huge paradigm shift for many of you who've been told just to blindly keep investing in your real estate business, work on your brand, add staff members. Those days are over. We're in a new market. Good. Rejoice, because here's the great news. The greatest fortunes of man have always been made during the greatest times of change. And we are, like it or not, I'm still not decided whether I like it or not, to be honest.
Yeah,
we are, like it or not, in one of those greatest times of change. Now, here's another thing. Today is my birthday. Greatest time of change for me.
Yes.
And I want to thank all of you for 3 reasons. Number 1, for all the very nice, happy birthdays that I'm receiving everywhere. Julie and I are putting up some fun pictures on Instagram if you want to check those out at Tim and Julie Harris. So that's number 1. Thank you very much. I sincerely appreciate it. And by the way, Julie's birthday is in 3 days, so keep that in mind. Mm-hmm. Number 2, I want to sincerely thank all of you for keeping this the number 1 listened to daily podcast for real estate professionals in at least the United States. Tens of thousands of you, actually hundreds of thousands of you, download and listen to this podcast every single month. In the last reporting period, it was almost 700,000. that's extraordinary, considering in the United States, there's 1.6 million, members of National Association of Realtors. Speaking of which, I also want to thank them because they actually are, they're calling us now America's #1 real estate coaches. So that's pretty cool too, right? So it turns out that if you do something, Julie, for a long period of time, if you do what you don't want to do and you don't want to do it, at the highest level, and I need to edit that, for a really damn long time.
Yes. Over and over and over.
Over and over again, So never be careful of overestimating. What was it? Charlie Munger, right? People overestimate what they can accomplish in 12 months. They underestimate what they can accomplish in 20 years. And that is absolutely true. You don't have, if 20 years seems like too long of a horizon, adjust, But the reality of it is, in this market, it gives all of us an awesome opportunity to hit hard reset, right the wrongs that maybe we didn't realize are, mistakes we had been making. Maybe they were not mistakes at the time when you made the decisions 2 or 3 years ago, but you're now realizing that they are. And step forward into this new market and be grateful that you have a real estate license. Be grateful that you're in the real estate industry. Love it, hate it sometimes, whatever. You are smart enough at one point. And some of you, it was 2 days ago, I realized, to get a real estate license, you have actually entered into real estate at what will be one of the greatest times to be a new licensee. And in addition to that, if you're a seasoned veteran, like a lot of the people that are showing up in Julie's coaching schedule, you also have an incredible opportunity. Why? Because the disruption is here. And the disruption is happening from the economy. The disruption is happening from the housing market. Again, I say this, please focus on what I'm telling you. The greatest fortunes of men have always been made during the greatest times of change. And we're in those greatest times now. You just have to be someone who's willing to do what they don't want to do when they don't want to do it at the highest level. And make yourself just a little bit uncomfortable every single day. And you will, in the next 2 to 3 years, you will not believe what you have accomplished. And it's because why? It's because you are willing to step outside of the norm. You were willing to finally learn. Maybe you didn't even know that you didn't learn what you had to learn, but now you've gone back and you've gone back to the Coach Julie school and you've actually honed in on your skills. And now you've got a skill set and a mindset of somebody that you never would have had it not been for this time that we're going through now. So I salute all of you who are stepping up in your lives, personally, financially, and all the other important ways in your lives. And I totally and completely respect and appreciate what you're doing, because whether you know it or not, you're actually providing leadership for all the other people in your life. When you decide that you're going to be a leader, you're going to decide you're going to be a listing agent. You're going to decide that you're going to lose 20 pounds. You decide what you're going to do. Whether you know it or not, you are having a positive influence on everybody around you. And there are people that are paying attention to you that you don't even know that are paying attention to you. And you are giving them permission to improve their lives. You're doing God's work. That's the simplest way of saying it. Because you decided not to be complacent. You decided not to wait for the clouds to clear. So on my birthday, ultimately, I salute all of you who are stepping up and making this your market, despite what everyone else is saying.
Amen to that.
You guys have a fantastic day. We'll talk with you on the show tomorrow.
Hello, thank you for having watched this video. Please remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel.
That's right. And don't forget to hit that like button, leave your comments and questions below, and we will get right back with you.
Thank you for watching this video. And remember to watch the next one. You're going to love that one.